Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. Tonight's story is titled, CEO Signed a Fake Marriage with a Waitress. Her secret on the wedding night shocked him. The rain slid across the windows of the downtown diner like thin silver threads, the neon sign outside flickering against the chrome counter. At 11:47 p.m., Mia Hartley wiped down the last booth with slow, tired circles, her feet aching after a double shift. She didn't notice the man in the tailored charcoal suit watching her from the corner, the kind of suit that didn't belong anywhere near a $6.99 meatloaf special. She only noticed him when she heard a calm, deep voice behind her say, "Miss Hartley?" Her hand froze midair. No one ever said her last name here. She turned, confused, staring at a stranger who looked like he had stepped straight out of a Forbes cover. Sharp jawline, dark hair slightly tousled from the wind, eyes cold as polished steel. "I'm Adrian Blackwood," he said, laying a document folder on the table like it weighed 100 pounds. CEO of Blackwood Industries. Mia blinked. That name alone could buy the whole block. "I think you have the wrong person," she murmured, instinctively pulling her apron tighter. "I'm just a waitress." "I know exactly who you are," he replied, voice low, unreadable. "And I'm here with a proposal." Her heart stuttered. "A proposal?" "A contract," he corrected, sliding the papers toward her with one elegant push. "I need a wife for 6 months. In return, you'll receive full medical coverage for your mother, plus a compensation amount that settles your family's debt entirely." Mia felt the blood drain from her face. Her mother's hospital bills were drowning her. She worked 3 jobs, slept maybe 4 hours a night in a rented room barely big enough for a twin mattress. "Still," she whispered, "why me? You don't even know me." Adrian studied her for a beat, something flickering in his expression, pain, memory, before vanishing. "Because," he said quietly, "you're the only person in this city with nothing to gain from my last name." The rain thumped harder outside, like the world itself was holding its breath. Mia swallowed, her throat dry. "I don't understand." Adrian leaned in slightly. "A merger vote in my company is coming. I need stability. Optics. A wife who isn't from the corporate world. Someone clean. Someone real. Real." The word hit her unexpectedly, like a bruise blooming under her ribs. She stared at the contract, its black ink, its cold promises, its lifelines wrapped in legal terms. She should walk away. Any sane person would. But then she saw, tucked inside the folder, a prepaid statement for the hospital, her mother's name printed in bold. A full year of treatment, paid in advance. Her breath shook. "You did this already?" Adrian nodded once. "I don't make offers I'm not prepared to finalize." Mia's chest tightened, not because of the offer's weight, but because of its certainty, as if her life had already been rewritten without her consent. "What's the catch?" she whispered. Adrian's eyes held hers. "The only rule," he said, "is that you don't ask me about my past, or what happened the last time I tried a contract marriage." A strange chill crawled over her spine. She didn't know why, but for a moment, he looked almost haunted, like he was standing on the ashes of something he couldn't let burn again. She touched the papers with trembling fingers. Her mother needed this. She had no other way. When she finally whispered, "I'll sign," Adrian didn't smile. Not even a flicker. He simply exhaled once, as if bracing for impact. Outside, thunder cracked through the city sky, and Mia Hartley, waitress, daughter, survivor, had no idea that this single signature would lead to a wedding night secret that would shake the CEO to his core. The city was still wet from the late-night storm when Mia stepped out of the diner after signing the contract, the cold air hitting her like a warning she could not fully read yet. By the time she reached her tiny rented room, the sky had turned a pale gray, the kind of color that made everything feel heavier. She placed the contract folder on her nightstand, staring at it as if it were about to open itself and swallow her whole. She barely slept. When her alarm buzzed at 6 in the morning, her body felt numb, her mind spinning with everything she had agreed to. At exactly 8 o'clock, a black SUV pulled up in front of her building. She recognized the driver from the night before, dressed in the same crisp uniform, his expression unreadable. "Miss Hartley? Mr. Blackwood sent me to escort you," he said. Mia climbed in, clutching her worn purse, feeling painfully out of place in the spotless leather interior. As the SUV merged into morning traffic, she watched the city blur past the windows. "Do you do this a lot?" she finally asked, her voice small. The driver glanced at her through the rearview mirror. "Ma'am, you are the first." Her stomach tightened. Of course she was. Nothing about this situation was normal. When the car turned into the gated driveway of Blackwood Estate, Mia felt her breath catch. The mansion looked unreal, like something carved out of old money and colder intentions. It was 3 stories tall, framed by stone columns, with windows so large they reflected the rising sun in sharp gold streaks. "He lives here," she whispered. "He owns here," the driver corrected. The front doors opened before she even stepped out. Adrian stood in the foyer, the morning light catching the edges of his features, making him look more like a polished statue than a man made of blood and bone. His suit was immaculate, his tie perfect, his expression controlled. Mia froze in the doorway, feeling suddenly aware of her thrift store jeans and the diner smell still clinging to her shirt. "You are on time," Adrian said simply. "Come in." His voice was steady, professional, like they were about to discuss quarterly earnings instead of a marriage that made no emotional sense. Mia followed him inside, trying not to stare at the chandelier above her head. It looked like it cost more than her entire neighborhood. "We will finalize the public announcement by Friday," Adrian said, walking across the polished marble floor. "The wedding will be held tomorrow morning." She stumbled. "Tomorrow?" "There is no benefit in delaying," he replied. "The longer the window before the merger vote, the more vulnerable the company becomes." "Right?" she murmured, though nothing about any of this felt right. Her mother, her debts, the hospital bills, they were right. This arrangement? She still could not tell if it was salvation or a trap wrapped in legal paper. A woman in a navy blazer approached them, her heels clicking sharply. "Miss Hartley, I am Evelyn, Mr. Blackwood's personal assistant. I have your schedule prepared." Evelyn handed Mia a thick packet labeled orientation. "You will need wardrobe fittings, media coaching, and signature training before tomorrow. Also, please memorize the backstory you and Mr. Blackwood will present." Mia's head spun. This was not a marriage. This was a performance. Adrian noticed her expression, pausing for the first time since she arrived. "If at any point you feel overwhelmed, you may step away. But not out of the contract," he added quietly. "Just out of the room." She nodded, unsure whether she appreciated the offer or resented it. "You will be given a temporary room until after the ceremony," Evelyn said. "Then you will move into the East Wing with Mr. Blackwood." Mia's heart lurched. Share a home. Share a last name. Share a life built on a lie neither of them could fully control. But everything she loved depended on this. She straightened her shoulders. "I can do it," she whispered. Adrian studied her, his expression unreadable. "Good. Then let us begin." And as Mia followed them deeper into the mansion, she did not know that the closer she stepped toward this fake marriage, the closer she came to the secret that would shatter him on their wedding night. The hours that followed were a blur of lights, fabric, voices, and instructions that twisted around Mia until she could barely remember what silence felt like. After Adrian and Evelyn led her down a long corridor lined with oil paintings, she was ushered into a massive dressing suite that looked like it belonged to a celebrity, not a waitress from a cramped rented room. Racks of designer dresses and shades she could not even name stood against the walls. A team of stylists circled her with tablets, tape measures, and questions she did not know how to answer. "What is your preferred color profile, Miss Hartley? Do you have any sensitivities to makeup? What is your usual skincare routine?" Mia wanted to laugh. Her skincare routine was whatever sample size moisturizer she could get on sale. But she forced herself to stay composed, remembering the contract, remembering her mother lying in a hospital bed with tubes and monitors keeping her alive. After nearly an hour of fittings, Evelyn returned with a clipboard. "We need to run through your public statements," she said. "You and Mr. Blackwood met at a private charity brunch last month. You connected instantly. You have been dating quietly. The engagement was sudden but heartfelt. Both families approve." Mia blinked. "Both families?" Evelyn nodded briskly. "Yes, it is important for credibility." I do not have a family who can approve anything, Mia whispered. Evelyn hesitated, the first crack in her polished exterior. Then we will simply not mention that to the press. The words stung more than Mia expected. She swallowed hard as Evelyn continued. Memorize these answers. Journalists will test you, especially those who want a scandal. You must appear confident, poised, and genuinely in love. That word felt like a stone dropped into Mia's stomach. Love. There was nothing loving about any of this. When Evelyn left her alone for a moment, Mia sat on the edge of a velvet bench, pressing her hands to her temples. She whispered to herself, "You can do this. You have to do this." But even as she said it, fear gnawed at her ribs. Later that afternoon, she was escorted to the dining hall for lunch, which felt less like a meal and more like another form of training. The table stretched nearly 20 feet, set with more silverware than she knew what to do with. Adrian was already seated at the far end, reading something on his tablet. He did not look up when she entered. "Sit," he said, still scrolling. Mia took a seat halfway down the table, unsure of the rules. "Closer," he added calmly. Her heart thumped as she moved 2 seats closer, her chair scraping lightly against the polished floor. "You will need to be comfortable near me," he said without emotion. "Every appearance we make will require it." The food arrived, perfectly seared salmon with lemon butter, roasted vegetables arranged with geometric precision. Mia suddenly became aware of how she usually ate. Quickly, quietly, because she never had enough time. She picked up her fork carefully. "You do not have to be afraid of breaking anything," Adrian said, still not looking at her. "This house is used to enduring more than a fork hitting a plate." She tried to laugh, but it came out thin. "I just do not want to embarrass you." Adrian finally lifted his gaze, and the intensity of his eyes made her sit straighter. "Embarrassment comes from intent," he said. "You are not here to manipulate me. That is more than I can say for most people I have known." Mia felt a strange warmth rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. "I should warn you," he continued. "The board will not be pleased. Some already suspect I have ulterior motives for rushing into marriage." "Do you?" she asked before she could stop herself. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly. "If I did, you would not be sitting here," he said. "I chose you because you have nothing to gain from my ruin." The statement was meant to reassure her, but instead it chilled her. Because if she had nothing to gain, she also had everything to lose. After lunch, Evelyn returned to take Mia to the media room, where she practiced answering staged interview questions while bright lights shone on her face. Every answer had to be warm but not too emotional, confident but not arrogant, affectionate but not clingy. By the time they finished, Mia felt like a puppet whose strings were being pulled by a dozen invisible hands. Near sunset, she was given a moment alone in her temporary room. She stared at the wardrobe filled with gowns she had never imagined touching, the marble bathroom bigger than her entire apartment, the quiet that felt too still to be safe. Her phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. "Your mother's treatment has been approved. Payment confirmed." Mia sank to the edge of the bed, pressing the phone to her heart. Relief washed over her in a wave so strong she nearly cried. This was why she was here. This was why she had agreed. This was why she would endure whatever tomorrow brought. But as she whispered a thank you to whatever force was still watching over her, she could not shake the feeling that she was walking into something darker than she understood, and that Adrian Blackwood, behind his cold composure, was hiding wounds a contract wedding could never conceal. The morning of the wedding arrived with a sharp, icy stillness that wrapped around the estate like a warning. Mia stood in front of the full-length mirror in the dressing suite, her heartbeat loud in her ears as the stylist fluttered around her, adjusting the delicate lace sleeves of the simple ivory gown chosen for her. It was elegant yet understated, the kind of dress meant to look expensive without drawing attention, exactly the image Adrian wanted for their carefully crafted story. As the final pin was secured in her hair, Evelyn stepped into the room, holding a sleek black folder. "Miss Hartley, these are your final talking points for the ceremony. Nothing complicated. Stand straight, hold Mr. Blackwood's arm, smile politely, and keep your answers brief if anyone approaches you." Mia nodded, her palms already sweating. She had memorized everything, but her mind felt foggy, as if the weight of the entire arrangement pressed down on her shoulders at once. "Where is Adrian?" she asked quietly. "He is meeting with legal advisors," Evelyn replied. "The board is anxious," and he has to reassure them this marriage is legitimate. The word legitimate twisted painfully in Mia's stomach. As she took a slow breath, the door opened, and Adrian entered, flawlessly dressed in a tailored black suit that fit him like a second skin. He paused when he saw her, something unreadable flickering across his face before he straightened his posture. "We need to leave in 10 minutes, he said, his voice steady but softer than usual. "The ceremony will be held in the conservatory. It will be small, just witnesses and a photographer." Mia nodded, but she could not bring herself to speak. Adrian's eyes lingered on her for a moment, as if he wanted to say something more, but then he simply offered his arm. "It is time." She slipped her hand into the crook of his elbow, surprised by the warmth beneath the fabric. As they walked down the long hallway, she could feel the slight tension in his muscles, a subtle tightness that told her he was not as calm as he appeared. The conservatory was filled with soft morning light, filtered through towering glass panels. Rows of white orchids lined the aisle, and at the front stood a judge, along with 2 witnesses in formal attire. It was beautiful, but cold, like a staged photograph. No family, no friends, no love, just legality dressed in elegance. As they approached the judge, Mia felt her breath shorten. Her vision wavered slightly, the edges blurring. She forced herself to stay upright. This was for her mother. This was survival, not romance. The judge began the brief. Script, the words drifting like distant echoes. "Do you, Adrian Blackwood, take Mia Hartley to be your lawfully wedded wife?" Adrian's voice was calm, unshaken. "I do." "Do you, Mia Hartley, take Adrian Blackwood?" She swallowed hard. "I do." The judge nodded, signing the document with a practiced flourish. Adrian took the pen next, his signature bold and precise. When it was Mia's turn, her hand trembled so violently she had to steady herself against the table. She pressed the pen to the paper, her name appearing in uneven strokes, but still legible. A photographer snapped photos with rapid clicks, documenting every moment that was meant to look spontaneous and heartfelt. "You may exchange rings," the judge said. Adrian lifted the small velvet box, revealing 2 platinum bands. He slid one onto her finger, the metal cold against her skin. She did the same, her hands unsteady. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Husband and wife. Words that should have felt sacred instead felt like a contract sealing around her wrists. When the ceremony ended, the witnesses left with polite nods. Adrian turned to her, expression unreadable. "We will have lunch, then prepare for the public announcement," he said. "Are you feeling all right?" She forced a smile. "Just overwhelmed." He studied her closely, as if trying to read a code beneath her expression. "This arrangement will not always be easy," he said quietly, "but I will not let you fall." The promise struck something deep within her, something she did not want to feel. As they walked out of the conservatory together, sunlight glinting off their new rings, Mia could not shake the chill creeping through her ribs. Because now that the marriage was official, there was no turning back. And the secret she carried, the one she prayed would never come to light, was already tightening like a shadow around their brand new vows. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings, press appearances, and rehearsed smiles. Mia was becoming a master of pretending, of being the perfect wife on paper, though every time the cameras clicked, it felt like a mask slipping further onto her face. Adrian remained the picture of composure, as if this entire arrangement was no more than a brief business deal to him. He was polite, respectful, and always a step ahead in every conversation, but there was a distance between them that she couldn't bridge. They shared the same house, the same title, but the silence between them was louder than any words. Late one evening, as Mia sat in the spacious living room reading a book she had no real interest in, she heard the familiar sound of Adrian's footsteps approaching. He had a meeting, or so she thought, but when he stopped in the doorway, she glanced up and found his gaze softer than usual. "Mia," he said, his voice a little less businesslike than it had been. "I need to talk to you." She set her book aside, her heart quickening. "What is it?" Adrian crossed the room and stood in front of her, his eyes searching hers for something. She didn't know what. "I'm not sure how to say this, but I can't keep pretending this is all just a formality," he admitted, the words slow, deliberate. "You've been distant." Mia blinked. She hadn't expected this. "What do you mean?" she asked quietly. Adrian hesitated for a moment, his hand resting on the back of the chair where she sat today. "I've noticed that you don't trust me," he said softly. "And I don't blame you. This whole thing, it's not real, not in the way a marriage should be. But that doesn't mean I want to keep you at arm's length. I want to know you, Mia." The vulnerability in his voice caught her off guard. She had never expected him to say anything like this. She had assumed that for him, this was just a business transaction. "I don't know if I can do that," she whispered, her throat tightening. Adrian's gaze softened. "You don't have to answer me right now, but know that I'm here, and I'm not just doing this because of the company. I've agreed to this contract, but I'm willing to make it something more if you will let me." Mia's chest tightened. The sincerity in his words was so unexpected that it made her heart race. She had never imagined that Adrian would want anything more than the cold, calculated arrangement they had agreed upon. And yet, here he was, offering something she wasn't sure she could accept. "I can't just forget everything that led us here," she said, her voice trembling. "The lies. The reasons we're in this situation. You don't know what it's like to struggle every single day. To feel like you're losing everything, just to survive. You don't understand how easy it is to build walls when you've had to fight for everything you've ever had." Adrian's face softened, and he sat down beside her. "You're right. I can't know exactly what you've been through. But I'm not asking you to forget. I'm asking you to trust me enough to see that I'm not just here for the contract. I'm here because I want to get to know you, Mia. I want to try, even if we're starting from nothing." His words were raw, honest, and Mia felt her defenses start to crumble. She had never allowed herself to hope for anything like this. She had always assumed that she was just a means to an end for Adrian. But now, she wasn't so sure. Adrian reached for her hand, his touch gentle, as if afraid she would pull away. "I can't promise you a fairy tale," he said quietly. "But I can promise that I will be here, and I will do everything I can to make this work. If you'll let me." Mia looked at their joined hands, feeling the warmth of his fingers against her cold skin. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a lifeline. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this marriage could be more than just a business deal. Maybe it could be something real. But just as quickly as the thought entered her mind, doubt crept in. What if it was all a lie? What if she was setting herself up to be hurt again? She closed her eyes, trying to push away the uncertainty that gnawed at her. "I don't know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm not sure I can believe you." Adrian squeezed her hand gently, his eyes filled with understanding. "I don't expect you to trust me right away, but I will prove to you that I'm not like everyone else. I'm not just a man in a suit, pretending to care. I want to be here for you, Mia, in whatever way you need me." She sat there in silence for a moment, unsure of what to say. But deep down, something inside her stirred. Maybe it was hope. Maybe it was fear. But for the first time, she wasn't sure if she wanted to walk away from this arrangement. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, it felt like there was a chance it could be something more than just a contract. And maybe, just maybe, she could let herself believe in the possibility of love. Ivan, the head butler of the estate, knocked lightly on the living room doorway the next morning, his voice calm and formal as always. "Mr. Blackwood asked that you join him in the East Courtyard, Mrs. Blackwood." The title still felt foreign to Mia, like a costume she had not earned, but she nodded and followed him through the mansion's quiet halls. The sun filtered through the tall windows, casting soft golden light across the marble floors. She had barely slept. Adrian's words from the night before echoed in her mind, carving new questions into places she had worked hard to keep sealed. When she stepped outside, she saw Adrian standing near a long stone table set with breakfast for two. A gentle breeze ruffled his hair, softening the hardened edges of his usual composure. "Good morning," he said, and for the first time since she met him, the greeting sounded almost warm. "Good morning," she replied, her voice uncertain but sincere. They sat, and for a few minutes the only sounds were the clink of silverware and the rustle of leaves. Mia noticed that Adrian kept looking at her as if he wanted to speak, but every time the words reached his lips, something held him back. Finally, he set down his coffee cup. "Mia," he said, his tone steady but edged with something unspoken. "There is something we need to discuss." Her stomach tightened. "What is it?" Adrian exhaled slowly. "It is about tonight. We have an event to attend. It is a charity gala hosted by one of our partners. The press will be everywhere. People will watch us closely. It will be our first major appearance as a married couple. Mia felt her pulse quicken. What do they expect? They expect us to look comfortable, he said. United. Familiar. Familiar, she echoed softly. Adrian nodded once. We will need to hold hands, stand close, perhaps even act affectionate. Nothing improper, nothing forced, but believable. Her breath caught. She had expected staged interviews, posed photos, formal gestures. But this, touching him, pretending intimacy in front of hundreds of eyes, felt impossibly vulnerable. Adrian saw the hesitation across her face. I would never ask you to do something that makes you feel unsafe, he said quietly. But the public needs to believe this marriage is real. If they sense distance, the board will take advantage of it. I understand, she whispered, though her heart pounded. The contract had never mentioned this level of closeness, not in public, not in private. She tried to steady her voice. I will do what I need to do. Adrian studied her carefully, as if weighing her sincerity. We can practice, if you would like, he said gently. Only if you are comfortable. Her cheeks warmed. Practice? Yes, he replied, his voice surprisingly patient. Standing close. Taking my arm. Simple gestures. We do not want it to feel stiff or awkward at the gala. Mia hesitated, then nodded. All right. Adrian rose from his seat and extended his hand toward her. She placed her hand in his, the warmth of his palm surprising her. He stepped closer, leaving only a breath of space between them. Look at me, he said softly. She did. His eyes were steady, focused, not cold like before. This is how we will stand for photos, he said. Relax your shoulders. She exhaled shakily, and he guided her hand to rest lightly on his arm. Good, he murmured. Now walk with me. They moved slowly across the courtyard, her hand looped through his arm. It felt strange, intimate, unreal. But it was also the first time being near him did not feel like navigating a minefield. When they stopped, Adrian turned toward her again. You are doing well, Mia. She swallowed, suddenly aware of how close they were, how he was looking at her as if trying to memorize the details of her face. Thank you, she whispered. He released her arm, but not immediately, as if letting go took effort. I know this is a lot, he said. I know I may not be easy to trust, but you are not alone in this. I am in it with you. The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. She wanted to believe him. She truly did. But as the wind brushed past them, carrying the faint scent of lavender from the garden, a whisper of fear stirred beneath her ribs. Because if she let herself trust him, if she let herself believe in this growing softness between them, then the secret she carried, the one she had buried beneath years of grief and guilt, would not just hurt her. It would destroy him. And for the first time, she realized she dreaded the day that truth would surface. Adrian signaled the end of their practice with a small nod. We will leave for the gala at 6. Evelyn will help you prepare. All right, Mia murmured. As he turned to walk back inside, she watched him, the distance between them closing and widening all at once. She pressed a hand to her chest, her heartbeat uneven. Tonight, they would stand side by side in front of the world. But the closer she walked toward the lights of the gala, the closer she came to the moment her secret would no longer stay hidden. Ivan's knock echoed softly through the dressing suite as evening settled over the estate. Mrs. Blackwood, it is time. Mia stood before the mirror, hardly recognizing the woman staring back at her. Evelyn's team had dressed her in a deep navy gown that shimmered under the lights, its fitted silhouette elegant without being extravagant. Her hair was swept into soft waves, her makeup subtle but polished. She looked like someone who belonged in Adrian's world, even though she knew she did not. Her stomach tightened as she followed Ivan down the grand staircase. At the bottom stood Adrian, dressed in a black tuxedo that framed his broad shoulders with precise lines. For a moment, he simply stared at her, his expression shifting in ways she could not decipher. You look, he paused, searching for a word he rarely used. Beautiful. The sincerity in his voice made her breath catch. Thank you, she whispered. He stepped closer and extended his arm. Are you ready? As ready as I can be, she replied. He nodded, his expression softening as she placed her hand in the bend of his elbow. Together, they walked toward the waiting car. The ride to the gala was quiet, not tense, but charged with something unspoken. Streetlights passed across Adrian's face, carving shadows and highlights along his jaw. Every once in a while, Mia felt him glance at her, but each time she tried to meet his eyes, he looked away. When they arrived, flashes exploded like a storm as soon as the doors opened. Reporters crowded the entrance, shouting questions, their cameras clicking in rapid bursts. Adrian guided her out of the car, keeping her close, his hand steady and warm on her back. "Smile," he murmured. She did, feeling the weight of attention press against her chest. "Mr. Blackwood, over here. Is this your new wife? Why such a sudden marriage? How did you two meet?" Before Mia could panic, Adrian spoke smoothly, his voice calm and confident. "My wife and I are very happy to be here tonight. Thank you for the warm welcome." The simple statement caused a surge of bright flashes, and Mia felt her cheeks warm. As they moved through the crowd, Adrian's hand closed gently around hers, grounding her. He leaned toward her, his lips close enough that she felt his breath. "You are doing well," he whispered. The intimacy of the moment made her heart stumble. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted to warm elegance. Chandeliers glittered above, casting golden light across the ballroom. Soft music floated through the air, and guests dressed in luxury moved with effortless ease from one conversation to the next. Adrian guided her toward a group of executives. When they approached, he introduced her with a confidence that felt surprisingly genuine. "This is my wife, Mia." The way he said it, without hesitation, without calculation, made something flutter inside her. She exchanged polite greetings, trying to remember Evelyn's coaching. "Smile. Speak softly. Make brief eye contact. Do not overshare." For a while, it worked. But as the room filled with voices and laughter, she felt the familiar heaviness in her chest, the sense of being out of place. Adrian noticed immediately. "Do you want some air?" he asked quietly. Her relief was immediate. "Yes, please." He led her to a balcony overlooking the city. The night breeze brushed her shoulders, carrying the scent of roses from the garden below. Mia closed her eyes, letting herself breathe. When she opened them, Adrian was watching her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "You handled everything well in there," he said. "Better than I could have asked." "I felt like I was drowning," she admitted. "Everything is so loud, so overwhelming." "I know," Adrian said. "This world can be brutal. That is why I wanted you close tonight." His openness disarmed her. "Adrian, can I ask you something?" "Anything," he said. "Why me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Out of all the people you could have chosen, why a waitress who knows nothing about your world?" He hesitated, and for a moment his expression changed, something vulnerable flickering beneath the surface. "Because everyone in my world wants something from me," he said slowly. "Power, connections, wealth. But you looked at me that first night like I was just a man sitting at a table. Not a headline, not a bank account, just a person." Mia felt her heart tighten. She looked away, afraid he might see too much. "And maybe," he continued softly, "I chose you because you reminded me what it feels like to be seen." His words were so honest, so unexpected, she could not speak. The silence between them thickened, charged with a warmth that bordered on dangerous. But just as she turned to face him, a cold, familiar voice drifted from behind. "Adrian, I did not expect you to bring your wife." Mia froze. A tall woman with sharp cheekbones and calculating eyes stepped onto the balcony. Her expression was a blend of disdain and amusement. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Chloe," he said flatly. "This is not the time." Chloe's smile sharpened. "Oh, I think it is exactly the time." She looked Mia up and down, her gaze slicing like a blade. "After all, everyone is dying to know if this marriage is real, or just another one of your business strategies." Mia felt the floor tilt beneath her. Chloe's presence was more than a threat. It was a warning, and for the first time, Mia sensed that the secret she carried was not the only one looming over this marriage. There were shadows in Adrian's world she had not yet seen, and one of them had just spoken her name with a smile that promised trouble. Chloe's smile lingered in the cool night air, sharp enough to slice through whatever fragile calm Mia had managed to find on the balcony. It was the kind of smile that carried history, secrets, and the promise of a fight Mia was not prepared for. Adrian stepped subtly in front of Mia, his posture tightening, as if he were bracing for impact. "Chloe, this is not the place," he repeated, his tone edged with warning. Chloe lifted one eyebrow, unfazed. "Really?" "Because from where I am standing, this seems like the perfect place. All these cameras, All these eyes, all this anticipation. Her gaze flicked to Mia again, dismissive and cutting. Everyone is whispering about your sudden marriage, Adrian. You know how this looks. Adrian's jaw tightened. How it looks is irrelevant. It is done. Chloe's laugh was soft and cold. In your mind, maybe. But the board is not convinced. And honestly, neither am I. Mia felt her breath catch. She had expected judgment, maybe even suspicion, but the coldness radiating from Chloe was something deeper, something personal. Chloe stepped closer, her heels clicking against the marble floor with deliberate precision. Tell me, Mia, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. How long have you and my dear cousin been in love? A month? A week? Or was it an overnight fairy tale? Mia opened her mouth, but no sound came out. She knew the script Evelyn had drilled into her. She knew the answers she was supposed to give. But under Chloe's piercing stare, every rehearsed line evaporated like smoke. Adrian's voice cut through the tension. We do not owe you explanations. Chloe smiled, her head tilting slightly. No, you do not owe me. But you owe the company. You owe the shareholders. You owe the thousands of people whose livelihoods depend on your leadership. And they are questioning your judgment. Adrian stepped closer to her, lowering his voice. This conversation ends now. Chloe's gaze slid to Mia again, lingering too long. You can play the devoted husband all you want, Adrian, but I know you better than anyone here. You do not make impulsive decisions without a reason. Her eyes narrowed. So tell me, what does she have to make you risk everything? Mia swallowed hard, feeling exposed under Chloe's scrutiny. Before Adrian could respond, a photographer peeked through the doorway. Mr. Blackwood, can we get a few photos of you and your wife inside? Adrian exhaled sharply. We will be there in a moment, he said, dismissing the photographer. Chloe smirked, stepping back. Do not take too long. The wolves are hungry tonight. With that, she turned and disappeared into the ballroom, her exit as dramatic as her entrance. The moment she was gone, Mia finally allowed herself to breathe. What was that? She whispered, her voice trembling. Adrian rubbed his temple. Chloe enjoys creating chaos. She wants control of the company. She always has. Why does she hate me? Mia asked quietly. Adrian hesitated. Because your existence complicates her plans. She knows the marriage protects my voting power. She cannot challenge me unless she convinces the board the marriage is fake. Mia felt a chill run through her. So if she exposes us, she will try, Adrian admitted. She will dig, question, manipulate. She will look for any crack in the story. Mia lowered her eyes. And I am that crack. Adrian immediately reached for her hand. No, she is grasping at anything she can use. You are not the problem. But Mia shook her head slightly. You do not understand. She is right to question me. I do not belong here. I do not fit the image. I do not know how to act around people like her. Adrian stepped closer, his tone firm but gentle. You do not need to be like her. You just need to be yourself. And I will handle Chloe. Mia wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust the confidence in his voice. But Chloe's words had dug deep, stirring the very fear she had fought to bury since the moment she signed the contract. They re-entered the ballroom, the noise and lights washing over them like a tidal wave. Adrian kept her close, guiding her through crowds of elegantly dressed guests. But even as he introduced her with steady confidence, Mia felt Chloe's eyes on her from across the room, watching, calculating, waiting for a misstep. And deep in the shadows of her own heart, Mia knew Chloe was not wrong about everything. Because the secret Mia carried, the one even Adrian did not know, was the very thing that could shatter everything he had worked to protect. And if Chloe ever found out, the marriage would not just crumble. Adrian's entire world would fall with it. The ballroom's golden glow faded into the back of Mia's mind as the car pulled away from the gala that night, the city lights streaking across the windows like blurred warnings. She sat rigid in her seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, while Adrian stared straight ahead, his jaw set in quiet frustration. Chloe's words had echoed through every interaction, threading doubt through the evening until Mia could barely breathe. When they reached the estate, Adrian escorted her inside, his palm warm against her back, but the moment the front door closed, the warmth between them fractured. Mia, he said, turning to face her, do not let Chloe get in your head. She thrives on fear. Mia shook her head, unable to look at him. She does not need fear. She just needs a single truth. One slip, and everything falls apart. Adrian stepped closer. We did well tonight. We acted well, Mia corrected softly. That is not the same thing. His expression tightened, the distance between them sharpening. Do you regret this arrangement? He asked. If you do, say it now. Mia wished she could tell him the truth, that she did not regret helping her mother or agreeing to save his company, but she regretted the lie she had become, the secret she carried every moment, the past that clung to her so heavily she feared it would crush them both. But she could not say any of it. She whispered, I am just tired. Adrian hesitated, then nodded once. Get some rest. We will talk tomorrow. He walked down the hall, his footsteps measured, controlled. When he disappeared around the corner, Mia's breath shook free as if she had been holding it for hours. She went upstairs to the bedroom the staff had prepared for her. It was beautiful, warm, perfect, everything she had never known. And yet it felt like a cage. She sat at the vanity, staring at the flawless reflection Evelyn's team had built for her earlier. The makeup, the gown, the diamonds at her ears. None of it felt like hers. She lifted a hand and pressed her fingers against the glass, as if trying to reach the girl she used to be, the one who had lived paycheck to paycheck, the one who had made a mistake that had followed her ever since. A mistake Adrian did not know about. A knock startled her. She turned to find Evelyn standing in the doorway, holding a tablet. Mrs. Blackwood, I have some updates from the media team. The photos from tonight have gone viral. The public is responding well. Mia tried to smile, but her lips would not lift. That is good. Evelyn took a step closer, her voice lowering. I know tonight was difficult. Chloe can be intense. Mia let out a small, humorless breath. That is one way to put it. Evelyn hesitated, studying her face with a gentleness Mia had not expected. May I give you some advice? Mia nodded. Evelyn leaned against the doorframe. People like Chloe look for weaknesses. They hunt for cracks in a story. But the more honest you are with Mr. Blackwood, the harder it will be for her to break this marriage apart. Mia's heartbeat stumbled. Honest. If only it were that simple. She lowered her eyes. I do not think honesty is something Adrian wants from me. You are wrong, Evelyn replied quietly. He trusts you more than you realize. With that, she left, and the room fell silent again. Mia changed out of the gown and into a soft robe, but even then she felt exposed. Vulnerable. The conversation played on loop in her head. Adrian trusts you. But if he knew her truth, if he knew the secret she had carried for years, the one that could destroy his reputation, his company, his carefully built image, then trust would not matter. He would walk away. She paced the room, her breath uneven. She was falling into something dangerous, feelings she should not have, hope she was not allowed to hold. When the weight became too much, she slipped out onto the balcony, the cold night air biting her skin. The city glittered in the distance, full of people living lives she could not imagine. She closed her eyes. Tomorrow, the board would meet. Chloe would push harder. And Mia would have to decide whether to keep hiding the secret that could save Adrian's company or destroy everything between them. Because no contract could protect them from the truth forever. The boardroom was already buzzing with low, tense voices when Adrian stepped inside the next morning, his expression composed but sharp. Mia watched from the glass hallway just outside, her heart pounding as the executives straightened in their chairs, every eye on Adrian, as though he were walking into a battlefield rather than a meeting. Evelyn stood beside Mia, offering a soft whisper. Do not worry. He has handled worse. But Mia knew this was different. Chloe had planted doubt, and doubt grew quickly in rooms filled with power. Through the glass, Mia saw Adrian take his seat at the head of the long mahogany table, his posture straight, confident, unshaken. The board members quieted immediately. Chloe sat 2 seats down, her expression smooth, her smile polite in the way a knife was polite before it cut. Adrian began, his voice steady. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I know there are concerns regarding my marriage, and I am here to address them directly. Chloe leaned forward, her tone saccharine. We appreciate your transparency, Adrian. After all, a sudden marriage can be concerning, especially when billions of dollars and the future of the company are at stake. Mia felt her throat tighten. Adrian responded without even glancing at his cousin. My marriage has no negative impact on Blackwood Industries. In fact, it is stabilizing our leadership position ahead of the merger vote. Chloe's smile sharpened. If that is true, then you will not mind answering a few questions. For clarity, of course. Adrian's eyes flickered with warning. Proceed. Chloe lifted a folder, opening it with theatrical slowness. First question. How long did you know your wife before proposing? The board members shifted, some clearly uncomfortable. Adrian did not flinch. Long enough to know her character. Chloe said lightly. So not long. Whispers murmured across the table. Mia's stomach dropped. Adrian responded, his tone clipped. I do not measure relationships by time. Chloe tilted her head. Convenient. She turned a page. Second question. Why was the wedding conducted privately? No guests, no family, no colleagues. It raises questions about legitimacy. Adrian leaned forward, his gaze sharp. My personal life is not for public display. Chloe's eyes glinted. Except when it helps your voting power. Adrian's jaw tightened. Mia could see he was holding himself back, choosing restraint over reaction. Chloe continued. And third, perhaps the most important, what do we really know about Mia Hartley? Her background? Her finances? Her motives? The question struck like a blow. Mia's pulse roared in her ears. Adrian rose slowly from his chair. This is not an investigation, he said, voice low. This is a smear attempt. Is it? Chloe asked, her tone still light. Or is it due diligence? We cannot have unknown variables entering leadership circles. Especially not before a merger. Adrian's composure cracked for a fraction of a second. My wife is not a variable. Chloe tapped her folder. Then surely you will not mind if we perform a full background check on her. Mia's breath hitched. Evelyn's hand gently tightened around her arm, grounding her. Adrian's answer came fast, sharp, absolute. No, Chloe blinked. No. Adrian repeated. You do not touch her. You do not investigate her. You do not drag her past into this room. She is my wife, and that is where your interest ends. Chloe's expression shifted, subtle, but triumphant. Then you confirm she has something to hide. A ripple of discomfort swept the table. Adrian opened his mouth, but before he could respond, the doors swung open. Every head turned. The room froze. Mia stood there, her heart racing, her palms cold, her voice trembling but clear enough to cut through the tension. If you want answers, she said, you can ask me directly. Adrian's eyes widened. Mia, it is all right, she whispered, though nothing about this moment was all right. She stepped forward, the weight of every gaze pressing against her. I know I entered your world suddenly. I know I do not look like someone who belongs on your arm or in your boardroom. But I am not here for your money, and I am not here to deceive anyone. Chloe rose slowly, eyes glittering. Then perhaps you should tell us who you really are. Mia swallowed, her throat aching. The secret she carried sat like a stone in her chest, heavy and unmovable. Her past, her mistakes, her truth, all of it loomed behind her like a dark shadow waiting to spill into the light. Adrian stepped forward quickly, placing himself between Mia and the board. You do not have to do this. His voice was soft, pleading. But Mia met his gaze, her own trembling. If I do not, she whispered, Chloe will. And she will not be kind. Chloe smiled. She is learning. Mia looked around the room, feeling her pulse in her fingertips, her ribs, her throat. This was the moment she had feared since signing the contract. The moment the truth would no longer stay buried. She took a shaky breath. The truth is, but the words caught in her throat, refusing to move. Because speaking the truth here, in front of these people, would not just expose her past. It would expose Adrian's heart. And that was the one thing she feared losing most. The boardroom felt as if it were shrinking around Mia, every breath tighter than the last, every heartbeat louder than the ticking clock on the wall. Her hands trembled at her sides, and for a moment she could not speak, her throat locked by fear and memories she had buried too deep. Adrian stood inches from her, his presence a shield against the sharp eyes watching. But even his nearness could not silence the dread twisting in her chest. Chloe crossed her arms, her voice slicing through the silence. Go on then, Mia. Tell us who you really are. The challenge hung in the air like poison. Mia forced herself to breathe. I am not hiding because I want to deceive anyone, she began, her voice soft but gathering strength. I am hiding because sometimes the truth does not free you. Sometimes it chains you even tighter. A murmur moved through the board. Adrian reached for her hand, but she gently stepped to the side. She had to do this herself. Years ago, she said, I was living with my younger brother. We were barely scraping by. Our parents were gone, and I was working 2 jobs to keep us from losing our apartment. He fell in with the wrong people. Bad influences. Dangerous friends. I tried to pull him away, but I could not. Her voice wavered. Chloe narrowed her eyes, sensing weakness. Spare us the tragic prologue, Mia. What does this have to do with your marriage? Mia's chin lifted, fragile but defiant. My brother was arrested. And because I was the only adult in his life, because I was there that night trying to drag him out of trouble, the police included my name on the report. Chloe's smirk widened. So you were arrested. I was questioned, Mia corrected, her voice firming. Not charged. Not convicted. I did nothing wrong. But the record of that night still exists. A record that shows my name in a place it should never have been. She swallowed, shame burning. And ever since that night, every job interview, every background check, every opportunity slipped away the moment they saw it. Even if I explained, they looked at me like I was a criminal. Adrian stared at her, shock softening into something deeper, something pained. She continued, when my mother got sick, I did not have the money for treatment. No one would hire me for anything more than minimum wage because of a misunderstanding that happened years ago. So I worked double shifts at the diner, barely making enough to cover rent. I hid it because I was ashamed, because I thought if people knew, they would think I deserved the life I was living. Her voice shook, but she pushed forward. When Adrian came to me with the contract, it felt like the first lifeline I had seen in years. A chance to save my mother. A chance to breathe. She turned to him then, meeting his eyes. But I also knew that if your board found that report, they would twist it. They would twist me. They would say I was using you, manipulating you, trying to gain money or power. Tears welled in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. I hid it because I was afraid you would look at me the same way everyone else did. Silence spread across the boardroom, heavy and suffocating. Adrian stepped forward, his voice thick with emotion. Mia, you should have told me. I wanted to, she whispered. Every day? But I did not know how. And the longer I waited, the heavier it became. Chloe clapped slowly, mockingly. Touching. Very touching. But this only proves what I have been saying. She has a tainted past. She is a liability. Adrian spun toward her, fury sharpening every line of his face. Enough, Chloe. I am protecting the company, she said coolly. If the media finds this, they will not, Adrian cut in. Because I will tell them myself. Gasps filled the room. Mia's breath caught. Chloe stared at him as if he had lost his mind. You would expose your wife's past. Adrian shook his head. No, I will expose mine. The room froze. Chloe's expression faltered for the first time. Adrian continued, his voice steady but haunted. Years ago, I was engaged. It was a contract arrangement, similar to this one. And I failed her. I let the company consume me. I let people like you, he looked directly at Chloe, turn my relationship into a weapon. It destroyed her. And when she left, she told the press everything. Twisted truths, lies, and all the worst parts of who I was at the time. Mia watched him, her heart twisting. I swore I would never let someone I cared about be torn apart like that again. I thought I could control this situation. I thought keeping secrets would protect us both. His voice dropped. But I was wrong. He reached for Mia's hand again, and this time she let him take it. Whatever your past holds, you are not alone. Not anymore. Chloe slammed her folder shut, anger flashing in her eyes. The board will not stand for this. But one of the older board members cleared his throat. Actually, he said, I think the board would prefer a leader who stands by his wife rather than one who throws her to the wolves. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Chloe's face tightened with fury. Mia stared at the board member, stunned. Adrian gently squeezed her hand as he spoke. This meeting is over. Chloe stormed out, her heels cracking against the floor like thunder. When the door slammed shut behind her, the room exhaled as though a storm had just passed. Adrian turned back to Mia, emotion softening every hard edge of his expression. I am sorry, he said quietly. For all of it. Mia felt something inside her begin to heal, fragile but real. For the first time since the contract, she felt seen. Not as a problem, not as a liability, but as a person worth standing beside. And maybe, for the first time, she believed that this marriage, this complicated, imperfect, unexpected marriage, was becoming something real. The days that followed were filled with a strange, tentative calm. Chloe had stormed out of the boardroom, but her departure had not been the end of the battle. Mia could feel the weight of every eye on her, the whispers and glances, the silent judgments masked by polite smiles. But Adrian had kept his word. He stood by her side, through the media scrutiny, through the endless press conferences, and through the barrage of questions from the board. No one mentioned her past again, not in front of Adrian, and no one dared challenge the couple's unity. Adrian had carefully curated the narrative. Their love was real, their commitment undeniable. And slowly, the world had begun to believe it. Yet, for all the progress they had made in public, Mia knew they were still dancing around a more painful truth, one that neither of them had fully confronted. She had been waiting for the moment when Adrian would ask her about the secret she carried, the truth she feared would destroy everything they had started to build. It came one evening, 2 weeks after the board meeting, when Adrian called her into his office after dinner. The city lights flickered in the background as she entered, her heart pounding. Adrian was seated at his desk, the usual calm of his demeanor now replaced by something softer, almost hesitant. "Mia," he began, his voice steady but with an edge of concern. "We've been moving forward, and we're doing well. But I think we both know there are still things we haven't said, things we haven't addressed." Mia's breath hitched, and she moved to stand by the window, staring out into the city. She had been waiting for this. She had known it was coming. "Adrian." She turned to face him, but the words stuck in her throat. Adrian stood and walked over to her, his gaze gentle, unwavering. "Mia, I know you've been carrying something, and I know you're afraid that if you tell me, it will change everything. But I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere. No matter what it is, I will stand by you. You don't have to carry this alone anymore." Mia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of his words sink deep into her chest. This was the moment, the one where she had to make a choice. She could keep hiding, keep living with the fear of losing him, or she could finally tell him everything. "Adrian." She stopped herself, the fear threatening to suffocate her. "You don't have to tell me now," he said, sensing her hesitation. "But I need you to trust me. Trust that whatever it is, it won't change the way I feel about you." Mia looked at him then, really looked at him, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, the depth of his care. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel the crushing weight of her secret. She felt lighter, as though his presence had peeled away some of the layers of fear and shame she had built around herself. "I trust you," she whispered. Adrian smiled softly, but the smile didn't reach his eyes completely. He could see the way she was struggling, the way she was holding back. "Mia, you are not the woman I married for the contract," he said quietly. "You are someone I want to build a life with. A real life. And that means sharing everything." Mia took a deep breath, her heart racing, her palms sweating. She walked over to the desk and sat down, her hands trembling. "I have to tell you something. Something that might make you hate me. Might make everything we've built feel like a lie." Adrian knelt down in front of her, his hands resting on her knees. "Mia, nothing you say will make me hate you. I promise you that." She looked into his eyes, the safety there pulling her in. "Years ago, her voice faltered. I was in love with someone else. Someone who was dangerous, someone who—" She hesitated, shaking her head. "He used me. He promised me everything, money, power, a future. And I believed him. I thought I had no choice. I thought it was the only way to survive." Adrian's eyes softened, but he didn't interrupt. He simply listened. "But he betrayed me," Mia continued, her voice barely a whisper. "He left me with nothing but debt and a broken heart. And when I was at my lowest, I met you. I saw in you someone who was kind, someone who saw me as a person, not just someone to use. But I didn't know how to let go of the past, how to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made." She paused, her chest tightening. "And I thought, if I told you, you would never look at me the same way. You would never trust me again." Adrian reached out and gently cupped her face in his hands. "Mia, you're not the woman you were then. And neither am I. We both made mistakes, but we're here now. And I choose you. All of you. The past, the present, and the future." Mia felt the tears she had been holding back begin to fall, her chest aching with the weight of the relief she felt. Adrian pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly, as if he could shield her from the fear she had carried for so long. "We will face everything together," he whispered into her hair. "No secrets, no lies, just us." And for the first time in years, Mia allowed herself to believe it. She allowed herself to believe that she could be loved for who she truly was, flaws and all, and that with Adrian by her side, the future might not be so terrifying after all. The weeks that followed unfolded with a gentleness Mia had never known, a steadiness that felt almost unreal after months of tension and secrets. It was as if the moment she had finally given her truth to Adrian. The world had stopped working against her and started working with her. Adrian kept his promise. There were no more bored confrontations, no more whispered fears or shadowed glances. Chloe attempted to stir trouble twice more, but the board had already sided with Adrian, tired of her constant ambition and increasingly transparent schemes. Eventually, she stepped back, her influence dimming with every failed attempt to control the narrative. Throughout it all, Adrian never wavered in his support. If anything, the ordeal had forged something deeper between them, something neither of them had expected when they first signed that cold, emotionless contract. They moved from sleeping in separate rooms to sharing quiet moments in the morning, coffee cups in hand, sunlight softening the lines of their faces. They shared dinners that felt less like obligations and more like rituals of comfort. They walked the estate grounds, their hands brushing, lingering, learning each other in a way contract terms could never define. One evening, about a month after Mia had confessed everything, Adrian drove her into the city without telling her where they were going. The air was cool as they stepped out of the car, the city lights bright against the darkening sky. Mia looked at him curiously. "Where are we?" Adrian simply smiled and offered his hand. "Come with me." He led her into a quiet park she had never seen before. Lanterns lit the path, casting warm pools of light along the walkway. As they approached the center of the park, Mia saw a familiar object resting on a small stone table. Her breath caught. "Is that the contract?" Adrian said softly. The original marriage contract lay there, the papers neatly stacked, the signatures that had once bound them now nothing more than faint ink on fading pages. Next to it sat a small wooden box. Adrian turned to face her, his expression full of sincerity. "This contract brought us together," he said. "But it also kept us apart. It made you feel like you were not enough. And it made me believe I did not deserve something real." Mia's eyes glistened. "Adrian." He took her hands gently in his. "I do not want a marriage held together by conditions, fear, or expectations. I do not want a wife who feels trapped by signatures or haunted by her past. I want you. Not the contract. Not the arrangement. You." Her heart swelled in her chest, and she felt her breath tremble. Adrian released her hands, reached for the wooden box, and opened it. Inside rested 2 rings. The first, the cold platinum band from their contract wedding. The second, a delicate gold ring with a small diamond that shimmered under the lantern light. "This time," Adrian said, his voice filled with quiet emotion, "I want to ask without a contract. Without conditions. Without secrets. Mia Hartley, will you marry me for real?" Tears blurred her vision. She pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. "Adrian, yes. Of course, yes." He smiled, a real, unguarded smile that reached his eyes, and gently replaced the old platinum ring on her finger with the gold one. It felt warm, alive, a symbol not of obligation but of love freely chosen. Then, in a symbolic gesture, he placed the old contract into a metal dish beside the table and lit a match. Mia watched as the flame caught the edge of the paper, curling it inward until it crumbled to ash. The cold, binding agreement that had once dictated their lives dissolved in the soft glow of the lanterns. Adrian wrapped his arms around her from behind, his chin resting lightly on her shoulder. "We start fresh now," he whispered. "You and me. No past too heavy, no fear too deep, no secret too dark." Mia leaned into him, her tears falling silently. "You saved my mother. You saved me. And you made me believe I deserved better. I never thought I would have this, a home, a partner, a future." Adrian turned her gently to face him. "You did not have to earn any of that. You deserved it from the beginning." He kissed her then, slow and soft, the kind of kiss that sealed promises without words. When they pulled back, Mia rested her forehead against his. "What happens now?" Adrian smiled. "Tomorrow, we tell the board that the old contract is gone. And then, we file the paperwork for our real marriage." Mia laughed softly through her tears. "They are going to be shocked." "Good." Adrian said with a faint smirk. Let them be. It is time our story stopped belonging to them. He took her hand, interlacing their fingers as they walked back down the lantern-lit path. The night air felt warmer, the darkness less heavy, and for the first time in her life, Mia felt free, not because someone had rescued her, but because she had chosen her own future. Together, they stepped into the next chapter, not as strangers tied by necessity, but as partners choosing love over fear, truth over secrecy, and each other over everything else. Their story, born from a contract, had become something real, something strong enough to last a lifetime.